Hi, this is Andrew Sears, and this is the next session on market dynamics of traditional online education. So what I want to start off is just talk a little bit about the economics of online education. So whenever I was at MIT, I co-founded a research group with one of the fathers of the internet, and we looked at a lot of the economics of online, economics of digital technology. And one of the key things about that is that marginal cost of digital technology is near zero. So now with online education, marginal cost isn't quite zero, but I think that the marginal cost per student at scale is likely to be somewhere between $500 and $3,000. And that's actually with assuming that this is an accredited version. Now, if you're not doing anything accredited, it can be near zero. Now, the other thing that happens in online education is that it's independent of geography, and that really opens up competition. As I talked about in the previous time, schools that previously only had maybe a few dozen local competitors now will have hundreds or thousands of online competitors. The third dynamic is that online education is a platform business where you pay rent to be visible. Essentially, you should think of it like Google owns the internet, or Apple owns the mobile phones, or other people. And the old saying in marketing is location, 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 right? On the internet, if you don't pay rent to the internet landlord, so to speak, then you're not going to have a good location. You might as well be on the moon. So essentially what you have to do is you have to pay a significant portion of your revenue to be visible. Now, Apple makes that explicit in the App Store, where you got to pay 30%, and that's just how it works. Whereas Google, you don't have to pay, but if you don't, you're not very visible. The other significant characteristic of online education is that it's consolidation. It's driving consolidation. I'll talk about that in the next slide. And just a couple other statistics. Some of the latest research about, and I guess it depends on when you take the actual data point, but about 13% of students are in online only, and that's a lot of what I'm talking about is online only, not blended. And about 9% are in for-profit institutions. So the driving factor of online education is consolidation, and I believe that online is likely only to sustain 1/10 of current schools. So one of the reasons for that, if you look at this chart here, it shows what percentage of the market is in each of these categories, depending on head count. So 50% of the market is in online schools that have 3,000 or more students online. 26% is in 1,000 to 3,000, and then only 24% are in schools that have less than 1,000. So another way of looking at that is if you look at what does it take to get 1/3 of the total enrollment in higher education through traditional education? It takes 222 schools to make up 1/3 of the entire enrollment in the United States. Whereas in the online sector, it only takes 20 schools. So that's where I get the figure 1/10. It may be even more than that because there's no real reason why consolidation shouldn't continue. But I think that that's something to just recognize that's going to be a nature of the online marketplace. The other thing is looking at and understanding the for-profit education business model. And the reason why I talk about this in the online world is online essentially follows pretty close to a for-profit education business model. You can try to not follow this business model, but you're not going to be very successful because just the nature of the market is really bent towards this. So, and if you look at the pie chart of how money's spent, and the nonprofit might spend a little bit less in marketing, but 35%. So this is a for-profit, using Grand Canyon as an example, but most for-profits are following the same, and most online, even nonprofits are following. They might be 10% less in marketing, but they're pretty close to this. So 25 to 35% of their expenses are in marketing. Then you have instruction where you're spending 22%. 24% is in all the administration and student services, and then in the for-profit, a significant number is going towards profit. Now, if you want to compare business models, you can compare the for-profit to the private nonprofit to the public, and the revenue per student. So for-profit has the lowest revenue per student. It also spends the lowest percentage of its budget on instruction. So private nonprofit, and this is traditional higher education, has the highest revenue per student and spends the most on instruction, and has some budget left over for research. In the public, the revenue per student is $18,000, and the instruction is about $28,000. So that's another way of looking at this. So in this section, I just want to conclude with some of the recommendations of online education. One, and this would be for traditional schools that are going into this space, one is you have to invest in marketing. Essentially, you should view your online marketing expense as a replacement for facilities expense. So you're still paying rent, it's just you're not paying for your facilities expense to Google, you're paying it to Google instead of for physical facilities, and expect that to be somewhere I would say 20 to 30% of revenue. The second thing is online divisions really are going to need to have a different structure than traditional education. So generally they're going to need to be run independently, and they can be a part of the same organization, but they need to have autonomous, significant autonomous control. It's a phrase, new wine and new wineskins. And what you can do is you can conduct, there's a book called The Lean Startup. You can conduct lean startup experiments on where to focus. And ultimately, the name of the game in online education is scale. So as you scale up, you're able to reduce costs. So online marginal cost gets down to somewhere between $500 and $3,000 a year. There's many schools, Liberty University, which is the largest nonprofit online university, they've put away $1 billion in profit because they've gotten to scale. So that's my recommendations for this section. And again, I would encourage you to check out the additional resources for this section and provide me with any feedback you can. Thanks.